Y'all, when I first heard about what I'm about to talk about in this video, I was honestly astonished. But we need to talk about this because this could actually involve a potential change to a bunch of spells in Wizard101. So what is the topic of today's video? Today, we're going to be talking about spells that only do damage, meaning they don't have any utility added onto them, and they also involve school pips to cast. There's a lot of examples of spells like this, right? Whether we're talking about one school pip involved or two school pips involved, there are tons of spells like Winter Moon, Ninja Pigs, Scales of Destiny, Goat Monk, Headless, Ninja Piglets, Tree of Strife, Glimpse. There are tons of spells that for a school pip, you do a little bit of extra damage on various spells, and all of the value of that school pip is put into the damage of that spell. Right now, based on messages in the Discord, the devs are seriously considering removing those spells entirely from the game and moving the entire value of the school pip to utility on every card. That would mean that we would see a Winter Moon that maybe it'll still be 4 pips and an ice pip, but it'll do much less than the 685, which is really good in PvP, a real nice source of damage output. And in exchange, I don't know what we're gonna get, probably some like double shield that you could fire off and literally punish like the easiest thing ever. I genuinely don't think they could possibly turn that school pip into utility on the spell without nerfing ice, a school that is sorely in need of a buff, not a nerf. The same could be said about Ninja Pigs, right? This would be a nerf to Myth, right? If they made the school pip not value in for the damage of the spell, but value in for utility, you're probably gonna get some weird like little trap or shield or whatever attached to it. It's just gonna nerf the damage output of the school for no real reason. Now you might be wondering, why are they thinking about nerfing a bunch of schools when these are spells, by the way, that aren't really that OP? It's because a lot of people are rightfully calling out double school pip spells. Double. 1 and 2. They're rightfully calling out double school pip spells for being way too broken and disruptive in PvP. Scales of Destiny is a spell that for over a year has been spammed by every balance in queue, and it has basically usurped every other card that a balance could ever cast. If y'all don't know why spells like Scales are so crazy, it's simply because school pips, when you're looking into the value that they add to the damage output on a card, they count for more than a power pip. So let's say that Scales of Destiny was still a 5 pip spell, but instead of 2 school pips, it was 3 pips and maybe 1 ice pip, or 3 pips and 1 life pip, right? It would do a lot less than 225 per hit of this, and it would be a lot less broken. It's the fact that it has 2 school pips worth of value adding onto the damage that does so much, like, you know, it just disrupts the meta like crazy. This is so much damage output for a 5 pip spell, especially something that is so hard to shield, especially something they could use literally up to 3 bubbles. Like, you could literally have a buff on Scales if there's a life damage bubble, an ice damage bubble, or a balance damage bubble. Obviously, I can't speak for everyone, but because the Scales issue has been in PvP and honestly has affected the quality of the meta, the health of the PvP, you know, like atmosphere, it's affected it for over a year. I think it's a really good candidate for just one small hotfix where you just make it so that it gets 1 school pip of additional value in terms of damage, and the other school pip, just mark it into the utility of it being a triple hit. That would essentially nerf Scales, yes, but it wouldn't make it do less damage than other 5 pip balance spells. It would just bring it down into the reality. When people were calling Scales broken, there was a bunch of people that used the opportunity in the Discord to attack every other spell in the game that uses school pips solely for damage. And I think it's some of the most biased horse doodoo that I've ever seen. I'm seeing a bunch of Storm and Death Wizards that are obviously, they want to be the ones that do the most damage. They're going after spells like Winter Moon that barely increase the damage output for this school. I don't mind school pip spells that, you know, only do damage. I think they can be totally fine. And I'd at least understand the criticism about, you know, changing Ninja Pigs and Winter Moon if Myth and Ice were the only schools that had good spells that use school pips only for damage. But every school has this. People just want schools that are already struggling in PvP to be nerfed so that the schools that they play are better. And I find that approach disgusting, stupid, unnecessary. I think the issue with Scales isn't the fact that you have school pips that only add damage to the spell. It's the fact that you have too many school pips that are doing that, right? Literally nobody is yapping about Rainbow Serpent being broken because no one really cares about the damage output of Rainbow Serpent. The school pips, literally, they don't add so much damage to this because there's a utility attached to it. That's all you have to do with Scales as well. It's clearly not 1 school pip of damage increase that people have a problem with. It's both school pips. That's really the only issue. Just make a rule where if you ever make a spell that uses multiple school pips, Make it so you could only use one school pip to increase the damage of the spell, hotfix scales out of the game, and stop trying to meddle with all the other spells in the game that people actually like using. I don't see how that's a complicated thing. I genuinely don't get how scales has been in the game for well over a year with this exact criticism attached to it. There is no argument for why the devs have dragged their feet on at least PvP banning the spell until they could figure out a real fix for it. I wouldn't feel so strongly about this if I got the impression that when they, you know, address one problem in the meta, it won't take them like several months to address the next one. I think there's a gigantic mix-up of priorities in terms of where they're going to be hotfixing things. I think if you're looking at spells like Winter Moon and Ninja Pigs, but you're not looking at spells specifically like Scales, like a Moot, which is completely just formulaic in the way you cast it on a fire. If you're not looking at heal spamming first, if you're not looking at Storm Elf, if you're not looking at that and it takes months for PvP changes to happen, then I am very uncomfortable with Winter Moon and Ninja Pigs even being in the conversation. I am horrified at the thought that they're gonna make Winter Moon do something weird like Hit and Shield or Hit and Trap because the criticism around Scales is being conflated with Winter Moon and Ninja Pigs and stuff like that. And then they're not gonna hotfix Storm Elf or Jading or dot spamming without any real counters in the game. They're not gonna address that, but they're gonna do that. That is awful. And the other thing, other than like the really stupidly biased feedback in the Discord that seems to be drowning out the actual rational voices, like we have a bunch of Storm mains trying to get Winter Moon nerfed, y'all, and I do not appreciate that. Beyond that, I'm also becoming really frustrated with Wiz taking months, if not over a year, to just hotfix singular cards that are deeply interfering with the Wiz PvP meta. I understand that there's a lot of value in figuring out why Scales is broken, but if it's gonna take a year to figure that out, then something needs to be done about its impact on the meta. That's just the truth. And the way they're trying to justify fixing Scales with some sort of rule that has to affect all these other spells and nobody's really complaining about, that's a part that I hate the most, because what this could really, like, what could really happen instead of just a common sense hotfix to Scales, we could be seeing a bunch of spells affected, including nerfs for schools that simply don't need it, all for the sake of a rule that can justify addressing Scales. The other argument that I've heard a lot of people make that I don't want to leave out of this video is that when you start literally just always removing damage output from every other school, you'll start running into this issue where in any form of advanced content, in any form of rating, you'll always and only want Storm to be the hitter, right? In a PvE scenario, things like Winter Moon actually make the game fun and vibrant. Just having to justify getting rid of this because Scales was a stupid decision, that just affects PvE as well. But it completely affects the viability. Like, let's say that you want to hit on an ice, right? Maybe you can play support, but also set up for a hit. It's not like it's impossible to do that. Spells like Winter Moon, spells that really, you know, highlight the damage, even given the low DPP of ice, those are helpful. Getting rid of this isn't going to make the game any better. I am firmly opposed to them doing anything to spells other than Scales that get only damage from school pips. I hope more people, if y'all don't agree with me, let me know in the comments, but I hope the people that feel this way weigh in. If you're like an ice or a myth main, I guarantee you feel strongly about this. We'll see what they end up doing. Maybe this video will make some sort of difference. I have no idea, but I can't be the only one who's so damn tired of getting Storm Elfed and Scale spammed in PvP on an ice or a myth. And having the devs even talk about making Ninja Pigs or Winter Moon worse in those circumstances, I can't be the only one who's mad annoyed by that. And the fact that it affects PvE and the actual, like, you know, diversity of hitting in Wiz, I think this is just like a clear-cut issue that a lot of people will disagree with if they go through with the proposed change that they talked about in the Discord. So let me know what you guys think. At the end of the day, disagreeing is fine as long as we're respectful about it. I hope I was respectful, but honestly, sometimes it's hard. But let me know y'all's thoughts on what could be a really crazy upcoming change to a bunch of lore spells, a bunch of school pip spells. I look forward to reading all of y'all's thoughts and comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Sorry for a rant of a video if it came off too ranty. Stay awesome. See y'all soon. And yeah.